Hi everyone, this is Sarah Raymer Dean, and I am doing a little series, I guess you could say, on some introductory sets of professional watercolor paint that I have found and that I would recommend. So this option is a little bit more pricey. I didn't write down the price, but it's usually around $40 or so. In Canada. However, I bought this mixing set from a pawn shop and it was brand new and I paid $10. It even came with watercolor ground and a whole bunch of things. So you can find some cheaper options, but this little set is it's a true mixing set, which means that it has a cool and a warm yellow, a cool and a warm red, a cool and a warm blue. And that means that you can mix just about anything. So the cool yellow is Hansa Yellow Light. Then the warm is New Gamboge. Then Pyrrol Scarlet for warm red. Quinacridone Rose for cool red. Phthalo Blue Green shade for your cool blue, and French Ultramarine, I almost couldn't say that, for your warm blue. And, you know, cool and warm just refers to, cool means that it leans more toward blue, and warm means it leans more toward red. So the reason that's important is that in order to mix pretty colors, you need to mix the right shades. So here they have the light yellow and the warm yellow. If you mix the warm yellow with the warm red, then you'll get a really bright orange. Also, if you take this Pyrrol Scarlet and mix it with the light yellow, you'll still get a pretty bright orange. But if you were to try to mix this yellow or this yellow and the warm red or the Quinacridone Rose, you will get a different color that is not a lovely orange. It'll be muted and it won't look very nice. Also, if you try to mix purple with this cool blue, the Phthalo Blue Green shade, you won't get a very bright, vibrant purple. But if you take your Quinacridone Rose and you mix it with the French Ultramarine, which is warm, then you get a much prettier purple. So that's where this comes from. Also, the Hansa Yellow Light mixed with the French Ultramarine, which is the warm blue, produces a very muted green, which is still pretty, but it's not the most vibrant. So in order to go for vibrant shades, you'll mix your yellow with your cool blue. And then you get this really bright green. All right, so then when you've got this warm and the cool of each primary color, you can mix anything in the world, really, truly. So 6 colors does it. Now I wanted to show you on this wheel, you see that I've arranged it so that the primaries are spaced out. You could, well, you have 2 sets of primaries here. The cool primaries are the Hansa Yellow Light and the Quinacridone Rose, and then the Phthalo Blue. Then the warm primaries are the New Gamboge, the Pyrrol Scarlet, and the Ultramarine. The other colors that you mix are called secondaries. So this green is a secondary color. Secondary meaning it includes these 2 colors. So it's a mixture of these 2. And this purple is a secondary mixed with these 2 colors. All right, and here I've shown you what happens if you want to mix this Pyrrol Scarlet and this yellow. You can also get a really nice orange. So, or actually, I'm not really sure. Did I mix this Pyrrol Scarlet and the New Gamboge to get that color? Probably. Anyhow, so I don't know if you get kind of the idea, or if you have any questions, please let me know. I did this in September. So when I put colors across from each other on a wheel, that means they're complements. So this orangey yellow is a complement to this red blue. And when you mix those two colors together, they neutralize each other. And that means that in the right concentration, you can mix black or gray. And here's an example of the black or the gray mixed from those two colors. Again, the red, the cool red here, and this green mixed together makes a not entirely perfect gray because they're not perfect. They're not a perfect neutralizing pair. Probably if I mix this green with this red, it would make a better gray. But here you can see it makes a nice earthy tan. I don't know. So it's grayish. So you can experiment with your colors, find the ones that make the color of gray that you want, and then mix those colors to get your grays and your blacks, and your paintings look a lot better if you do that. Also, here you can see that this Pyrrol Scarlet mixed with this blue created this really pretty brown shade. So I challenge you to try mixing complementary colors, so those colors across from each other on the wheel, and see which are the most neutralizing pairs and which produce the grays and blacks that you like the best. Here, this purple mixed with the yellow make a really nice light gray. So a lot of times you don't want a really, really dark. Here you could have a very nice light gray mixing these two colors. All right, so let me know if you have questions. So this set did come with its little paper from Daniel Smith, and it explains how to mix your colors and what is a secondary color, what is a primary color. It talks a little bit about ratios, and here's a mixing chart. So you can create your own mixing chart, which is a really good idea no matter what paints you have that you're working with. You should do this and see what kind of mixes you can make, because we don't need 30 colors. We don't need 24 or even 12. So I think that less is best when you're learning, and then you can add a few colors that are extra special because of their pigments and their properties. Anyhow, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. And also, I think that a lot of us are over consumers and we don't actually always use what we have. So whatever we have, I think we should use and try to keep things a little less consumerist. Anyhow, now, there's the tubes. Here's the paint in an actual little plastic palette, which is what I'm going to use to do today for my painting. So my demonstration painting is one that I took from a picture that I took from the garden this week. And I'm just going to put the reference image up on the screen here for you to follow along. There you go. It's my grapes. They're called Frontenac grapes. And they were bred for the prairies. We live in the far northwest of Ontario. And they're very hardy. But they're a little small. So they're, at least this year, they were like the size of my big blueberries, probably smaller than my thumbnail. Anyhow, this has been traced on cotton paper. So if you work with it in your hands, it feels like a rag. It is rag. It is 100% cotton, produced by this Khadi company, which is a textile company from India. And so the parts of their fabrics that they don't use, they create watercolor paper with. And I really appreciate that, because I think that we need a lot more companies that use recycled materials. And this paper is not available within Canada that I know of. I do purchase it from Jackson's in the UK. because I don't know where else to buy it from, but I think it's a fine paper. It is not something that will take a lot of scrubbing or lifting. So it has its uses, but I prefer Arches cold press if I want to do a lot of scrubbing and lifting and carrying on with paper. But if you're just going to paint this and kind of let it be, then it's a wonderful paper. So I like it because I like how it feels. I like it because it's environmentally responsible. It has many good points. Now, you'll see this yellow stuff that I put on here. This is masking fluid. And you can see this is from Daler Rowney. It's a latex kind of stuff. It stinks. And so it's like rubberish. And it's sticky to your finger if you touch it. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's sticky. It's dry though. The way you know that it's dry is that it's translucent. You can see through it, but when you put it on initially, it's opaque. Here's a little tiny jar of it to show you. And I use a little stylus to dip in here to get the masking fluid on, and then I paint on the white spots. So this cluster of grapes was covered in raindrops, and I really liked that. So I used the masking fluid to preserve the white, so it'll make it easier to do my initial colors. So we can see that we have the blue that looks a little bit opaque. And it's got a bloom on it, and that's typical with fruit. If you rub the fruit with your finger, you can see the really dark blue that is underneath. So let's try mixing some colors from these 6, and we'll see if we can make a match for anything. So I am not going to use this green shade blue as far as I know. I think that we'll use this ultramarine. It's much closer to the color. And we're going to use a little bit of this Quinacridone rose to make a bit of a purpley color, because there's some areas that are purpley. And so I'm going to have kind of a range of purpley colors in my little palette here. All right. So then we've got a bright kind of tanny, greeny in the stems, and we have some dark spots. So we're going to need a gray. So I'm going to take ultramarine again, because we know that the orangey color is its complement. We're going to try to mix a gray, and look, I've got a blue green. So that means I need some more of this in order to make it a little more neutral. Oh, nice kind of olive green now. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I'm going the wrong way. I think I need more blue. Okay, so this is where mixing a gray type color is a little bit challenging. I might need a little red in there to make a real gray. And there we have it. I have found gray. So this Gamboge is a little too yellow still. It's not orange enough to be a complete complement to the ultramarine. So that's why you need a little bit of the warm red in order to come up with a gray. Okay. So those are all very pretty colors though. So this is what's fun about this. You mix and enjoy the process and figuring out what works. So if we want a brown, because we're going to need brown, I'm going to take some of that warm red and I'm going to put some blue in there. Now I have a kind of a purple. Then I'm going to take a little yellow. And now I've got, well, still a very neutralized purple. Okay, there's the brownie color I was looking for. So now I've got grays and I've got browns and, well, I've got some greens. But I actually overmixed those so they're not still present. So what I'm going to do is take some of the yellow and take some of the blue and just mix some kind of green. I got another kind of green there. Another kind of green there. I'll take a little of the warm. Now I've got a more olivey, yellowy green. So I think this color might be good for the stems. It might need a little more bright yellow. I'm going to put some more of the Hansa yellow light in the mixing palette. So if you have paper that's the same as the paper you're working with to test your colors on, that's the best thing here. I actually have, I think, Arches cotton paper, so it's not exactly the same. The colors are going to look slightly different over here than they do on this paper. All right, so now let's talk the actual grapes. So here's a really warmish purple. Here's some of the kind of violet. Here's just some of the ultramarine. I don't know. Well, we'll just go with this and see what we can do. So when I start, I'm going to try to look at my reference, see where the lights and the darks are for each fruit. And I have a printout of my fruit over here that I'm looking at too. So if you see me looking that way, it's because I have a printout there. It's hard for me to see the reference photo that I have on the screen because it's only 2 inches tall and quite a distance from me. So anyway, I advise you to do this kind of thing. See if probably on my Facebook page, I will have some line art so that you can copy the line art down and then create your own version of it. So I have dampened this. I have painted it with the ultramarine, and now down in this area, I've got some darks. So what I'm going to do is I put a little purple in there, and then I realized, well, I want to go for dark, right? So I'm going to go get some of that gray mixture that I had, and I'm going to drop that in. Okay. That dark. But anyway, you can work in layers. So I'm working on the fruit first, because if I go and try to paint the stems at the same time, I'll have a bit of a mess. So I made my gray a bit more blue, but it's kind of a green blue now because I added some of the green blue, which probably wasn't the best idea. I'm going to have to fiddle with my gray again. So typically when you mix your colors, you want to mix enough for your whole painting. However, I'm using a tiny little palette, so that's going to be a challenge. I'm probably just going to have to keep mixing here and there, you know, as I go. And you can go back to your damp paint and drop in some darks in areas. That's called charging in. And you can see that the paint moves around. That's because it's all wet. So that's called wet in wet. Now I'm going to go down here. And it's crucial that I don't touch the next grape here. Because if I do, I will have that dark coming in, which I don't want. So I've got some little bit of dark going like this in here and right around this stem. So I'm going to leave that grape as that is and move on. Going to go for this top grape right up here. And since the masking fluid's like a little lump or bump, it sort of makes paint collect around it. So just make sure you don't get dark spots where you don't want them because of that. So if I don't talk, I guess it's because I'm just painting. I find talking and painting all at once a little bit of a challenge. So I am now dabbing in here, removing paint because I got a little bit of a little too dark. Guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on hyperlapse, so that means that I will video this process in a faster mode so that you don't have to watch the whole darn thing. I think you can get the idea of how to do this after the layers dry. When you've got the color of the grape the way you want them, then you remove the masking fluid by rubbing with your fingers, or you can use a special rubber cement lifter, which is a really hard kind of eraser type thing. But your fingers will do just fine as long as the paint is entirely dry. Then you can paint your drops. Because with watercolor, the light of the paper is what you want to use for the white or the brights. So that's the reason for the masking fluid. It just makes painting easier because you don't have to preserve every little white bit that you see, because in watercolor, generally you don't paint white. You use the white of the paper as the white. And that's why the mixing set doesn't have white in it, because the white of the paper is your white. If you get really stuck, you can use a gel pen. In white, I have one right here. So you can go back after and add a little bit of the highlights with this jelly roll pen. But then when you do that, your work of art is called mixed media, because you're using a different media other than watercolor to do that. Also, you can use some white gouache if need be, but I find that it looks chalky and not very pretty a lot of the time. So it should only be used sparingly, unless of course you want to paint in gouache, and that's quite a different topic than watercolor. All right, so I'm going to then add the time lapse onto this video so you can see the rest of the painting in a bit of a speedier fashion. Thank you.